It was a crisp October night in the small, quaint town of Willow Creek. The air was filled with the sweet scent of pumpkin spice and the distant sound of children's laughter as they trick-or-treated door to door. A group of friends, Sarah, Emily, Ben, and Jake, were planning to spend the night at Sarah's house, watching scary movies and telling ghost stories. As they walked down the moonlit street, their laughter echoed through the quiet town. They passed old, creaking houses with their lights dimmed, casting eerie shadows on the cobblestone road. The air grew colder, and a chill ran down their spines. When they arrived at Sarah's house, they piled into her living room, turning off the lights and lighting a few candles. They started with a classic horror movie, The Exorcist, and as the tension built, they couldn't help but feel a strange unease. After the movie, they decided to tell ghost stories. Emily began with a tale about a haunted mansion in the nearby woods. As she spoke, the wind howled outside, and the candles flickered ominously. Legend has it that a young girl named Eliza was once locked in the attic of the mansion as punishment for disobeying her cruel stepmother. Left alone and forgotten, Eliza slowly starved to death, her cries for help falling on deaf ears. Some say that her spirit still haunts the mansion, trapped in a perpetual state of suffering. Witnesses claim to have seen her wandering the halls, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes filled with a haunting sadness. Others report hearing her mournful wails echoing through the empty rooms, a chilling reminder of her tragic fate. Some believe that Eliza's spirit is seeking revenge, haunting the mansion to torment those who dare to enter. Others say that she is simply lost and confused, searching for a way out of her eternal torment. Whatever the truth may be, it is clear that Eliza's ghost is a powerful force, capable of inspiring fear and dread in even the bravest of hearts. As Emily finished her story, they heard a faint scratching sound coming from the attic. A chill ran down their spines, and they exchanged worried glances. "It's just the wind," Jake said, trying to sound brave. But the scratching continued, growing louder and more insistent. Sarah grabbed a flashlight and cautiously climbed the creaky stairs to investigate. After a few minutes, Sarah returned, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. "I saw something," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "A shadow. A dark, shadowy figure." The friends exchanged terrified looks. They knew they had to get out of there. They grabbed their coats and rushed out of the house, the scratching sounds following them. As they ran down the street, they realized they were being followed. A tall, shadowy figure was moving swiftly behind them, its eyes glowing red in the darkness. They could hear its heavy footsteps growing closer. The friends ran faster, their hearts pounding in their chests. They reached the edge of town and turned down a narrow, deserted alleyway. The figure followed them, its pursuit relentless. Just as they thought they were trapped, they saw a small, abandoned cabin at the end of the alleyway. They burst through the door and slammed it shut behind them, locking it securely. Panting heavily, they leaned against the wall, their bodies trembling with fear. Their eyes, wide with terror, darted around the dimly lit cabin, searching for any sign of danger. The cold air of the abandoned cabin sent shivers down their spines, and the creaking floorboards beneath their feet only added to the growing sense of dread. They peered out the window, their hearts pounding in their chests. The shadowy figure was standing outside, its red eyes glowing menacingly. The moonlight cast eerie shadows on its distorted features, making it appear even more sinister. "What is it?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know," Ben replied, his voice filled with fear. "But it's evil." The friends huddled together in the corner of the cabin, their eyes wide with terror. The figure outside began to bang on the door, its heavy blows shaking the cabin. The friends held their breath, praying that the door would hold. The cabin creaked and groaned under the pressure, but for now, it remained intact. The friends exchanged terrified glances, their fear palpable in the air. They knew that they were trapped, and that their only hope was to hide and pray that the figure would eventually lose interest and leave. As the minutes ticked by, the banging on the door continued. The friends tried to stay calm, but the fear was overwhelming. They could hear the figure's heavy breathing, and the sound sent shivers down their spines. Suddenly, the banging stopped. A chilling silence fell over the cabin. The friends stared at each other, their eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. Then, they heard a faint scratching sound coming from the attic, followed by a creak from the floorboards above. A cold dread washed over them. They knew the figure had found another way in. The friends exchanged terrified glances, their hearts pounding in their chests. They could hear the figure moving around in the attic, its footsteps echoing through the cabin. The air grew thick with tension, and the friends could feel their breath quickening. The old, Victorian mansion at the end of Elm Street was a local landmark, known for its ornate architecture and its reputation as one of the most haunted houses in the state. Locals whispered tales of ghostly apparitions, chilling screams, and unexplained occurrences. Yet, despite its sinister reputation, the mansion remained a popular destination for thrill-seekers and curious onlookers. Two friends, Alex and Danny, were particularly fascinated by the haunted house. They had heard countless stories about the strange happenings there, and they were determined to experience it for themselves. One Halloween night, they decided to gather their courage and venture inside. As they approached the mansion, a cold wind whipped through the trees, sending shivers down their spines. The house loomed before them, its dark windows staring out like empty, lifeless eyes. Despite their fear, they pressed on, their curiosity outweighing their caution. They entered the house through a creaking wooden door, the air inside thick and heavy. The walls were adorned with strange, unsettling paintings, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling like ghostly tendrils. The friends ventured deeper into the house, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. As they explored, they began to hear strange noises. Footsteps echoed from the upper floors, and doors seemed to open and close on their own. A cold draft swept through the hallway, causing their hair to stand on end. Suddenly, they heard a faint whisper coming from behind them. They turned, their hearts pounding, but there was nothing there. The whisper grew louder, and then they heard a chilling laugh. A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, its eyes glowing an eerie red. The figure moved towards them, its movements swift and silent. Alex and Danny screamed and ran, their fear propelling them forward. They raced through the house, the shadowy figure hot on their heels. They ducked into a dimly lit room, slamming the door behind them. The figure pounded on the door, its fists shaking the wood. "We can't stay here," Alex whispered, his voice trembling. "We have to keep moving." They burst through the door and continued their flight, the shadowy figure still in pursuit. They ran through the house, their hearts pounding in their chests. The figure was gaining on them, and they knew they had to find a way out. They reached the front door, but it was locked. The figure was right behind them, its outstretched hand almost touching Alex's shoulder. In desperation, Alex threw himself against the door, and it finally gave way. They burst out into the night, the figure close behind. They ran as fast as they could, their legs burning with exhaustion. The figure was gaining on them, its red eyes glowing brighter and brighter. Just as it seemed that they were about to be caught, they reached the edge of town. They turned down a narrow alleyway, hoping to lose the figure. But the figure followed them, its pursuit relentless. They ran through the alleyway, their hearts pounding in their chests. The figure was right behind them, its hand almost touching Alex's back. In a desperate act, Alex grabbed a nearby rock and threw it at the figure. The rock hit the figure, knocking it to the ground. Alex and Danny seized the opportunity and ran as fast as they could, their legs burning with pain. They didn't look back, afraid that the figure would rise and continue its pursuit. They ran until they reached their car, their breath coming in ragged gasps. They jumped inside and sped away, their hearts pounding in their chests. As they drove away from the haunted house, they looked back, their eyes wide with fear. The figure was standing at the end of the alleyway, watching them go. Its red eyes glowed in the darkness, a chilling reminder of the terrifying ordeal they had just survived. Alex and Danny never returned to the haunted house. The memory of that night was too terrifying to revisit. They told their friends and family about their encounter, but no one believed them. They were dismissed as overactive imaginations or simply looking for attention. But Alex and Danny knew the truth. They had seen the ghost, and they had felt its chilling presence. The haunted house at the end of Elm Street was no myth. It was a place of true terror, a place where the dead walked among the living. And they were lucky to have escaped alive.